This is the biggest nether portal ever built in Minecraft. And here's the largest mathematically possible diamond ore vein. And this is every ginormous thing you can find in Minecraft. And hey, the YouTube elf bets that you can't subscribe before I fall from the tallest mountain in Minecraft. So, to prove them wrong, position yourself above that white subscribe button and start the timer now. And hey, even if you subscribed after I became ground beef, thank you, it helps a ton. If you've ever added a lot of enchantments to one item, then you can tell that these item descriptions get pretty big when you hover over. But where that gets really crazy is when we start to use commands. And as Weavies has shown off in the past, with the help of a command generator like we can see here, we're able to give ourselves a firework rocket that has all the possible options on top of it. And the end result is an item description that when you hover over it, it's too large to even fit on our screen. Even if we were to put this in the far right corner of our inventory and then hover over, it's still barely even rendering. And if you thought that was confusing, set it off and see how it looks there. It's also quite the eyesore there too. And maybe this is a good example of how short and sweet can be sometimes the best for your items. Now just imagine if this was enchanted as well. Then we'd really have something messy. Now in the past we've talked about super smelters in Minecraft, but Cars went one step further and built a super furnace to then house that super smelter. And here we not only see a perfect scale model of the pixel art of a furnace built into your world, with each pixel taking 9 blocks to make, but then also an entire set of minecarts and rails to go and power all the furnaces inside. I mean, the cost of this alone is already ridiculous, and it really makes you question how many items you need smelted ever, let alone all at once. But when you have a machine like this that can make 10,846 items in a single smelt, it's hard to say that's not impressive to show off, even if most of the time you're just cooking a couple of steak or ores and getting away at that. What's the biggest block that you're able to place in Minecraft? Well, it's a little complicated. Now, if we're talking about the tallest block, it would be something like a door, since when you place it down in a 1 block space, it takes up 2. But for the tallest hitbox within a single block space, then that would be a wall, since we're not able to jump over it normally. And then if you want to talk about the widest block that you would place, then that would be something like a bed. You place it down, and much like the door, it's 2 blocks laying out instead of up. And believe me, these are some of the smallest big things that we're going to talk about in this list. And next, we've got one of the largest building projects ever seen in Minecraft. This here is a project called Build the Earth. The idea is that multiple different build teams from different backgrounds and walks of life all come together to build a 1-to-1 scale recreation of the entire Earth within Minecraft. And to show how long this project's been going on, we first talked about this back in our Bored at Home Minecraft series almost 4 years ago. And it's still ongoing today if you want to join and help build. Just make sure that it wasn't already claimed by some other team, and you should be good to go. Or join one of theirs. And while I might sometimes find the real world a little boring, I gotta say that seeing it all here built up in blocks and with shaders, it's hard not to be impressed. Even if technically I should be more used to seeing the world like this than in-game. And if we're able to see a project like this that can actually finish within our lifetime, that's pretty spectacular. And it definitely puts that house that I've been putting off building to shame. What are the biggest mobs that you can find in Minecraft? Well, if we're talking about passive mobs, then that has to go to the camel, whose hitbox is 10 times the volume of Steve's. But then if we add neutral mobs to the equation, then the largest that you'll find in the overworld naturally is the Enderman, standing at 3.2 blocks tall. Though that's nothing compared to the hostile mobs that we can find in other dimensions. Like in the Nether, we've got the Ghast, which is as big as 4 blocks tall, and even then that's dwarfed by the Ender Dragon, which ends up being 8 blocks tall in the end. Though when you compare all of them together, it's actually the hidden giant zombie that you can summon only through commands that ends up being the tallest, standing at 12 blocks tall. Though it also has no AI, so it's really just like saying a statue's tall. And at that point, yeah, but it doesn't really matter much to regular gameplay. Plus, it doesn't have the health to match it. It has about as many hearts as an iron golem, so the bigger they are, the harder they fall. What's the biggest plant in Minecraft? And no, it's not an industry plant. The answer actually comes to us from the end, since one chorus fruit stalk is able to grow up to 20 blocks tall, whereas bamboo can only grow up to being about 12 to 16 blocks tall at the top. And if we're talking about the largest plant that can be placed on farmland to grow, then that would have to go to the new 1.20 pitcher pods, which can grow up to 2 blocks tall. The largest natural structure that you'll find in Minecraft goes to the Woodland Mansion, which excluding the basement stands on average 23 meters above the ground, or 23 blocks. And we might think that sounds like nothing when compared to the end cities, and you've clearly never seen seeds like this, since on rare occasions the mansion can glitch out and spawn hundreds of blocks into the air off its cobblestone foundation, turning this pillager house into a penthouse, and also a safety hazard if they try to leave, so maybe figure out an elevator system before you try to check out of this hotel. The heaviest item in Minecraft doesn't exist anymore, or at least its crafting recipe doesn't, so let me explain. Since back in the day, it was possible to craft an enchanted golden apple with 8 golden blocks surrounding an apple. Now, the apple itself doesn't weigh too much, that's not really the part we're worried about, but really it's the fact that each golden block weighs 19,300 kilograms, or or 42,500 pounds. Multiply that by 8 and you're getting a pretty heavy apple. But hey, it'd probably keep the doctor away. If anything, you could just throw it at them and end their whole bloodline. But when you see how many piglins you have to kill to get just one of these, it makes sense. Not only is it heavy with the gold, but also with all the zombified souls that you took to get it. Currently, there's no legitimate way to get an infinite amount of sand in Minecraft. Sure, there's a desert, but when you're the technical community, you can run out of that pretty quick. And that's where we get something like this coming in. This design by the user Comedy is really no joke. And really, the original design comes down to this post on Bilibili. But alright, what does it do? Well, this is able to duplicate 420,000 sand gravity blocks per hour. 422,000 to be exact. And when you watch this in action, it just looks like the sand is flashing in and out of existence, which I guess it basically is. But I didn't know that sand nor pistons could move this fast. And honestly, I'd be scared to have any amount of TNT like this too close to my other redstone thing. Place one wrong and it all explodes. But when you come through to the end on the other side and see all these blocks coming through, it basically looks like you're recreating your own desert inside of the end. There's not even a dull moment to see the items drop. It's that fast. And that crazy to build. But for big returns, you gotta put in big effort. This here by Cubic Meter is the ultimate storage system. And what exactly makes it ultimate, right? Just a lot of chests? Well, folks, that's barely even cutting it. Since the truth here is that this is able to store all of the items in 1.17 Minecraft. All of them. Yeah, you ever see one of those speedruns where they try to find everything in the game? Imagine storing all of those together in one machine, 2 double chests over. And when you start getting to the point where you need an actual spreadsheet to figure out how to access the items that you have on hand, you might as well just play in creative mode. It's easier to sort through, and you're about as rich. And while my sorting system usually starts to bottleneck at the speed of the Hopper, this one can sort up to 6.5 million items per hour. And if it ever reaches a fault, it just detects that itself. Yeah, you don't even have to worry about the chore of fixing it. How cool is that? But when you watch the item recall systems happen in action, I mean, I might not understand all of what's going on, but I can definitely notice that cool stuff go into cool place. And for my caveman brain, that's about all I need. The YouTuber Purplers not only has a great voice,
I want to kill lots of withers,
but also has some serious redstone skills. And you can see as much with this design, they're able to automatically kill withers every hour, which would already be cool. The wither's a tough boss fight, especially on Bedrock, but how many of these can it kill? Well, that's where the biggest part comes in. This machine is able to kill 72,000 withers per hour. I can't even count to 72,000 in an hour, let alone kill all of the wither skeletons necessary to build these withers. So again, huge credit to what Purplers and all the other guests that they have in this video were able to do. But if you ever wanted to build pixel art out of beacons, like we've shown off in the past, this is a way to do it. And let's be honest, when you're this rich on wither skeletons, you're probably going to be rich enough on the other stuff that you need to build the beacon, so you're probably fine anyway. What's the largest vein of diamonds possible? Well, I'd usually say that I'd like to just get about 8 of them in a vein. As user K-Low showed off in this video, it could be theoretically possible to find a diamond ore vein that has 849,889,796,160 diamond ore in a single vein. At that point, that's not a diamond ore vein. That is the literal lifeblood pumping through your world. I get worried that if I was to break one of these diamond ores, it would start spilling out some kind of liquid like in Shadow of the Colossus. And the reason for this is because if you look at chunk borders and what's technically possible, you could potentially, with the help of the right biomes, diamond ore generation, and fossils, line up a contiguous ore strain like this, and giving you probably the best thing ever to go through with fortune. I mean, when you reach the point that you're getting bored of mining diamonds, you know that you've got a lot. But it is quite the sight to see. What Luigi Toan built here is the world's largest nether portal. And we're not just talking about the kind of big overworld portals that you need to build a gold farm, but rather this design cost over 3 million blocks of obsidian to build, which I feel like would take about 3 million years to mine. So you really got to use yourself something like a wither obsidian generator to be able to get enough for this. And when your entire render distance isn't able to load this in, even when flying around with an elytra, I think it's big enough to impress your friends, and at least 2.6 million people online, so clearly it paid off. Now, scale models are clearly nothing new to Minecraft, but while we usually make our replicas smaller than the original, what if we went the other way and scaled it up? And as you can see from this set of builds, we did just that. By taking our 1x1 blocks and turning them into 3x3s, 9x9s, and so forth, the results can quickly get ridiculous. So while I wouldn't recommend trying something this insane in survival, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't impressive. Meaning if you've got the time and you're crazy enough, then maybe a set of scaling structures like this might just be up your alley. From this level, this witch hut seems normal, but from the ground level, it's immediately apparent that there's something different. See, on this seed, this witch and their cat seem to have spawned right on top of an extra tall hut right next to a mountain ridge. And the reason for that seems to be that because this generated located right on the edge of a hill and swamp biome, it glitched out and caused the pillars to be very high. But considering cats don't take fall damage, the feline friend can leave just fine, while the witch ends up as dead as Fortnite. If you've ever watched a professional builder, you'll hear the term block palettes come up a bunch. And while they're useful to guide your project, here, the block palette is our project. And by taking the time as others have to lay out a comprehensive gradient of blocks, we can get something pretty special to explore. And honestly, taking the time to study one of these layouts is a verifiable crash course for any building hopefuls. So whether you want to lay this out as a reference point or make the pattern into a build itself, it's an experiment worth trying in both cases. It only takes one look at the Minecraft subreddit to see just how many people make builds for their significant others. And while that is sweet, maybe you want something a bit more unique for yours. Well, if that's the case, Minecraft's world generation might just be your perfect wingman. Now, down on the surface, it doesn't look like too much out of the ordinary. Just a forest next to a mesa. But from above, it's clear to see that there's a heart carved right into the spawn location, which proves that even the Badlands biome might still have some good left in it. This build is not only a monstrosity, but also somewhat of a feat of Minecraft engineering. We've made the tallest possible 1 block wide staircase. And as you can see when you look at this, every single block that we're using has a different hitbox. It's impressive, but the only annoying part here is that it's not able to be walked up easily. As you can see, we have to jump up each individual step, which really isn't that fun. So to fix that, how about we build the tallest 1 block wide staircase that's actually walkable? To be frank, when we build this, we do sacrifice some of the height that we had in the last one, but the huge features that we just get to hold W and go up all of these with ease. And you know what? If you like the weird mix of blocks that we had in the last one, we still keep plenty of that on display. Making this still a pain to look at, but hey, at least now it's not as much of a pain to walk up. Okay, we're all familiar with this guy, the infamous dirt house. And while it's functional, it's not exactly a looker, and definitely not worth living in after the first night. But what if you're not ready to move on just yet? Well, this big brother might just be the solution. Sure enough, there have been plenty of variants added in just on top of the standard dirt block. And with those, we have a palette to turn this dirt hut into the Chateau de Terre. And really, if you're living in something as swanky as this, it's probably hard to call yourself a noob anymore. Though I wouldn't bank on this for a good safe house, cause obvious reasons. When you're first getting settled in Minecraft survival, a crop farm is always a good call, and if you spawn by a village, you've already got that covered. But what if we just can't leave well enough alone? Well, we probably get something like this. Following what this user did, it's possible, if you're crazy, to make a full-out crop field biome in your world. And while irrigation alone would be a grueling task, it's definitely a sight to see. Just make sure to stash up on some diamond hose before you try this, because the amount of durability required to till that much soil might just make your head spin. And the sad part is that this micro farm probably still has a better return on profits anyway. If you ever need proof of impressive dedication in the Minecraft community, then the Minecraft Seeds subreddit has it in spades. And one of my favorite examples of that is their competition to find the largest natural drop in the game. In this case, the task was to find just how many blocks you could fall in a natural world from one point to the other. And in an example like this, that could be as crazy as 239 blocks from point A to point B. So if you're looking for an impressive MLG save, you can't get much better than this. Raiding a pillager outpost can be something of a challenge, especially if you're not prepared to fight the foes. But this example's hard to raid for an entirely different reason. And really, without a Rapunzel to let down her hair, we might have a tough time climbing this extra tall outpost. But even if we can't, it's still worth seeing, even if you're just on the surface. By this point, we're all pretty familiar with the different structures in the game, and while they're iconic, they can also be a bit bland. So what if we were to take a page out of Trixie Blocks' book and recreate these bland buildings as something a bit more upscale? And if you ask me, that comparison is definitely something to appreciate, even if building one of these takes a hefty amount of time. So while I can never imagine something like this user's desert temple ever existed in the vanilla-based game, it is nice to explore nonetheless. And whether you upgrade the village, a jungle temple, or even just the desert's well, I think it'll all go appreciated. Now, the one that we have built here is actually 17 blocks wide just to climb 1 block of height, meaning that even though I'd say that this is as annoying to climb as a regular snow layer staircase, at the very least, it's just impressive to know this is how far we can push Minecraft's limits. When you're trying to optimize your Minecraft world, then a mob spawner is a must-have. But while most of us settle to find just 1 or 2 of these for our purposes, user Neil4879 found 8 of these within a single area. And what's even better is that they're all within range for the player to trigger the spawning. So if you've got the time to clear out all the blocks and design the mechanics, this might just lead to one of the craziest mob farms in the game that you could make without a world eater. Finding a slime chunk already seems like a tough task, and finding one in a convenient spot is even tougher. So you have to imagine the amount of luck that it would take to find 5 slime chunks in a row like this user did on Reddit. Not to mention the fact that it's underneath their home base too. And as it turns out from the math in the comments, since each chunk has a 1 out of 10 chance to be a slime chunk, then the probability of 5 chunks being slime chunks like this is a 0.001% chance of happening. Which in other words just means that you have to build a farm here. Even if it's not that much more efficient, it's definitely a lot more impressive to show off. From down here, this looks a lot like a regular river, but from up top, it's a lot easier to notice what's going on. When you spawn into this seed, there's a series of 8 rivers that are all locked together like so. Add on to that the fact that there's a neighboring desert village and desert temple, and this spawn seems to have you covered and then some. But by far my favorite detail of this might just have to be that since the rivers seem to mark an X on the map, you'd figure there's some treasure nearby. And sure enough, if you go looking for it, there's even a treasure chest within spitting distance of the location, making it all come together nicely. As Minecraft gets more changes to its world generation, it's got some of us asking, where are the volcanoes? And while there don't seem to be any in the works, this unintentional seed might do the trick. Here, a ruined portal spawned right atop one of the new mountains, giving us one of those lava-filled peaks that we've been waiting for all this time. Waterfalls in Minecraft usually don't offer much to see, or do for that matter. But in this case, it's a lot more than just a water block on a mountain's face. Instead, we've got a proper system of flowing pools carved into the cave system, which, might I say, is a lot more interesting to look at. And it's gotta be a lot more fun as a water park than just another slide like this. So while the Dripstone Cavern might seem like an odd place to bust out your swimsuit, this might have to be an exception. Here, it seems these pillagers built their outpost all the way at the top of the mountain, or at least they tried to. But because they started up so high, they were unable to build past the build limit, creating this halfway done outpost on top of the mountain. Though even if it was fully built, that doesn't seem like a very smart structure. I mean, how are they even supposed to get down? So unless these Squidwards have an elytra on hand, I think the villagers are going to be able to sleep peacefully tonight. Minecraft's world generation can sometimes feel repetitive, but here, that's literally true. In this seed, we see a rare occurrence of the world literally repeating itself along this line, meaning that everything, including diamonds, structures, and even biomes will stitch together along this line. And if you want to try for yourself, just type in this teleport command on the seed and you'll go to the same spot over and over again, even if it's at different coordinates. And big props to Matthew Boland for creating a literal algorithm to find this seed in the first place. That's a huge accomplishment in its own right. And it'll only take one look at the end dimension with this seed to see that the hard work finally paid off. Sometimes the Minecraft community comes together to try and hunt something down. And while we've seen that in the past with the Pack PNG seed or the seed that was in the background of the skeleton painting, the weirdest by far might be a cactus. And not just anyone, but rather specifically the tallest cactus that's ever been found, which is this one, standing at 23 blocks tall. And the reason for this isn't that the cactus are growing any taller than they're supposed to be, but rather, when a normal cactus can only grow up to be 3 blocks tall, 2 or more can occasionally stack on top of each other in the world generation, giving you this pretty crazy sight. But it just goes to show you that the bigger they are, the harder they fall, because all it takes is 1 block placed next to it, and it crumbles like that. Here we see an example where an ice spike tried to generate, but then it was carved up by a cave, giving us what looks like frozen water drips from the precipice of the cliff. And while this specific example that we're seeing was done with a non-amplified terrain, it is worth noting that if you wanted to go find one of these for yourself, you would have better luck using amplified world generation. You're just more likely to get a lot more cliffs. If you showed someone back in 2011 what Minecraft world generation looked like today, they'd probably think it's some crazy mod. And to me, this definitely fits that vibe. The jagged snow peaks on display here are something to really take in. And honestly, even though I don't usually build within the snow, this has got me reconsidering my choices. Exploring the new caverns found in the 1.18 world generation is a fun endeavor for sure, but having to check for creepers and skeletons behind your back every 5 seconds is not as much. So to play on the safer side and get a change of venue, this Mushroom Fields cavern seems like a better pick. Here we get that same expansive cave to explore, but in a biome where only bats can spawn in the dark below. And folks, that's basically free spawn proofing, which trust me, will be much appreciated the next time that you go looking for ores. Finding a dungeon is a lucky break, so finding 5 of them is real jackpot material. Here we spawn in lucky enough to find multiple of the things right underneath our world spawn, which would be crazy by itself, but we've also got quite the variety, with 2 skeletons, 2 zombies, and even a spider spawner to choose from, proving that if you're willing to dig to the bottom of the world, there's plenty here to make a record-setting design. And for any technical players out there, I for one would love to see how optimized this could be as a farm. And with that folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?